which I think is actually a natural process. And I realize that's a dichotomy for a lot of people to go, what, natural capitalism? That doesn't make sense. But the idea being capitalism is simply this accumulation of resources. Plants are even capitalists, birds are capitalists. They're pulling together things to create conditions for them to flourish. So we do that, and then we trade with each other. And nature is this free trading thing. And I think that's essentially this idea of capitalism, is this idea of private property. If you've worked to accumulate the thing, that's yours. And I respect that with every other individual. And then we trade our capital. We trade our capital and we build up capital and make the world better. But then there's this financial system, which we think a lot of our activist upset friends that you think would be the most aware, and I was them as well, blame the corporations, we blame the rich, we blame everything except what I see as this monetary system, a fiat monetary system, which is this idea of governments printing money, debasing the money, and that's coming from a centrally planned authority, which is not capitalism at all, and it's enforced by violence. So, yeah, I don't know, like, I'll have to hear your spin and take on it, because, you know, there's way more to it, obviously, and I guess what you said, you saw that you're awakening into that financial system, and that it's corrupt and it's broken.
And I qualified it by saying that brand of capitalism.
Yes, that's right.
Because I think, in essence, I agree with you in the true sense of the word capitalism. The way I see capitalism is when you take a resource and use your energy to enhance that resource.
Yep.
And then you can sell that resource, money just being a measure of exchange.
Exactly, yep.
That will then factor in the work that you've done.
Exactly.
So you can make a fair profit for the work you've put in.
Yep.
And accrue energy in the form of the resource or money. And then apply that to other things in your life and grow your life.
Yeah.
And we're here to grow our lives.
Exactly.
I mean, that's why we're here. And whether it's in nature, planting a forest, or whether it's just in the world of human society.
Building tools, providing goods and services and products.
So for me, there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
Except that got hijacked. And if you look at...
Tell us how it got hijacked.
If you look at the situation in... Well, I mean, obviously, it goes back a long way when you look at, say, the UK and Europe. There's some, you know, like, for example... there were, I think, was it the original? What's the family? The Rothschilds, right? The original Rothschild.
Yep.
He had several sons, and they all went to different cities. I think it was the Rothschilds, maybe it was the Warburgs, but there was one of those banking families.
The Rockefellers.
No, it wasn't the Rockefellers. One of the European banking families had, I think, 3 or 4 sons, and he sent them all off to different cities and different countries to start the banks in those countries.
Yep, they're partner banks, the sister banks. Yep.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of that kind of that system of banking, where it took that leap really into then financing wars. So
I'd love to come back to that point, right? Because my understanding of that time is before that, we were basically restricted and confined to monetary metals, precious metals, as our money, right? And that would still get co-opted and coerced by the empire of the time. They would, you know, get the gold, they'd issue their coins, right? And you could use those coins within the kingdom or empire. You could sometimes trade with others if they recognize that. But of course, there's this temptation to, you know, when times are tough, water down the money, dilute the money, cut it with something else, take shavings off. So there was always this temptation to corrupt. And what you're talking about then with these merchant banks and stuff, as trade, as our transportation and technology got better and our trading routes got further and further, we came to this like choke point with gold and precious metals that are heavy and risky to transport long distances. So then the best merchant networks, the best merchant families would set up the warehouses for the gold, right? So, you don't have to take the gold on that crazy trade mission, we'll hold the gold for you, give you a paper receipt.
Promissory note, yeah.
And then you can go see my partner bank in that other country place, and we will trade that note for the gold.
Yeah.
And that's, that's kind of my understanding how it came about. But again...
until eventually they realised that they didn't need the gold there to issue those notes.
Yes, and so it's a
and this is basically the thing about that is, I think that inherent in human society, as societies move into a pyramid kind of structure, and you have a kind of level of elite, that level of elite will end up corrupt. That's just the way our I think it's kind of a human tendency. And and that's exactly what happened. And that's just been consolidated over time through families, dynasties. Because let's face it, once you have wealth, you have an advantage.
You certainly do. That's the capital, right? Like that's the idea of accumulating capital. So you have an advantage over life.
Yeah. And to get to that point, you also need to have quite a ruthless attitude.
You do. Look, even me, as I go through this journey of accumulating capital and wealth in all its forms, you do, because as long as you stay loose and open and just like free flowing, you can't accumulate anything because everything's just constantly moving in and out and going. But if you want to like accumulate, you've actually got to energetically execute boundaries and walls and, to a certain extent be ruthless and be prepared to upset people and to say no and to just go, actually, no, like I've got to do this, and energetically start holding that energy so that you can accumulate it, right? Whether it's through discipline with learning and education, being honest and having hard conversations in relationships so that you get higher quality social relationships as a form of capital, or having to be ruthless in business, right, as well, to make money.
Yes. But I see how that, because of this corruption, this corruptive element that tends to creep in, the more, and I think it's kind of natural, the more you accumulate, the kind of more separate you get. Somebody once said that money is a measure of our separation, and I think to a degree that's true as well. Where in the sense of what money has become in the world today.
Because imagine if it wasn't corrupted.
Exactly.
And if it wasn't corrupted and all of the money that you would earn and everybody else had earned, or the capital, was honest for the betterment of everybody, then it would be like, well, actually then if you've done it right and the monetary system is in harmony with nature, then the more capital or money you've done more work and you're more in tune with everything around because you've served more people, right? No, I'm not talking about inherited wealth.